Well, percenters, welcome back to 1424 Basketball Training, where the goal is to take 14 minutes, 24 seconds, or 1% of your day to get better. I'm Coach Tommy. In today's episode, Thinking Basketball, episode 5, it looks like it's Magic Johnson. So let's watch. Let's see what we can learn. Magic Johnson, one of the guys I grew up watching a little bit.
Star of Showtime, a highlight reel legend who won 5 championships in Los Angeles.
Dimes.
But was there more to his game than just fancy passing? What was his defensive impact like? And could someone who wasn't a huge scorer actually be the greatest offensive player in NBA history?
Hell no.
In NBA. And could someone who wasn't a huge scorer actually be the greatest offensive player in NBA history?
Can you be the greatest offensive player in NBA history without? No. I mean, that's initial.
These are the greatest.
He's the best I've ever seen, unbelievable. I don't know what to say.
In the early days of the NBA, ball handling was left to the shorter players. Point guards maxed out at about 6'5" until young Magic Johnson shattered that ceiling. At 6'8", Magic had the size of a big man, but instead he became the tallest floor general in league history. Irvin always possessed these high-level ball skills, playing this way in high school and college, and his ability to handle the ball at high speed made him a unicorn in transition.
The game evolves, and as you break the game, right, the athletic levels change at every generation. Every now and then there's a player that breaks the mold, and Magic was definitely one of them. Before it was the smaller guards, and then you're just looking for the bigger, taller Wilts and Bill Russells and stuff like that, Kareems. And then you get a dude that's 6'8" and kind of in between that can run faster than all the small guys and bigger than, all the small guys.
With everyone within
That's basically LeBron James now.
20 feet of the hoop, then rebounds turned into foot races, and Magic's speed strained backpedaling defenders. That little change of direction is enough to spin around the defense, and there are no bigs back to stop the oversized Johnson. With everyone chasing offensive rebounds, Magic could often charge the rim as the largest player, and he loved that in and out dribble, but also noticed his change of direction at speed, the big step one way, then striding the other. He wasn't quite a Euro stepper in these spots, but his use of elongated strides for his height was part of his downhill devastation, even against set defenders. That's a baby cut there, thus the first defender was part of.
You don't need a lot of moves when you're the best player or best physical player. All you need is a little in and out, and to get separation, all you need is one step or even half a step. So as soon as this space here gets closed down, as soon as the offensive player closed down the space, he can take one step and get around. So you see LeBron do it all the time. Any big player that gets you backpedaling and you're on your heels and then they're coming forward at you, if you close that space, you can just step right around him.
His downhill devastation, even against set defenders. That's a baby cut there, thus the first defender, a beautiful behind the back dribble, and then almost a proto Euro step with a big step right, then changing directions back to the left. He wasn't Giannis, but Magic's size and head of speed made it difficult to keep him from getting to the cup, and so he became the godfather of the grab and go, scooping a rebound and flooring it to the other end. Even on.
Does Giannis have the motor? Yes. Does he have the intelligence and vision to do what Magic Johnson does? Probably not at this point in time. I mean, vision's kind of one of those things, you have it or you don't. You're processing the game at a super fast speed. So the closest thing to Magic, or the hybrid or the new version of Magic, is definitely LeBron. Can Giannis be that? No. Joker definitely has the vision and all that stuff, but he doesn't have the speed of a Giannis or a Magic or a LeBron.
He would build speed and drive it down the throat. Danny Ainge stays with the crossover here, but Boston's center isn't back yet, so Magic can easily clean up the miss. Off this make, he builds up speed, and Seattle's center is near the three-point line, so that change of direction turns him around, and look at how low and sturdy Johnson is. He's powering through contact with his body and his free throws. Here come the Lakers again off a make, only this time Boston has pieces in place, but Magic upshifts into a backpedaling Ainge, and so help defenders need to sink into the lane, and that just creates wide open offense. Like upshifts into
a this,
and so help
this would be kind of like a dunk for LeBron or even Giannis.
Just sink into the lane, and that just creates wide open offense. Defenses who flooded the paint in transition to wall off Magic still surrendered perimeter jumpers. These outside jumpers were big wins for defenses.
Collapse the D and shoot it.
Magic pressure created a kind of pick your poison, where if help came, he smoked it with his passing. Jack approves. So that made big men reluctant to leave their marks, and then Magic just scored over smaller defenders. His playmaking was so threatening, he could use it to unlock scoring. Imagine playing defense against this. If you sprint back, Magic uses that body to cut you off and slow you down, and if you're a big man hustling back, you have to snap yourself around only to cover AC Green flying down the wing, but joke's on you because the magician still has the ball.
This is basically the way the game is played now, just with a lot better spacing and much better shooting.
Of course, Magic's threat to score also opened passing windows in turn. And this is all possible because of his dribbling, behind the back, through the legs, whatever it took. Magic was incredibly secure with his handle in tight spots, changing speeds when needed, shielding the ball with his body, and snapping passes off the bounce. This allowed him to probe defenses. He's cut off well here, but protects the ball from a trailer and then attacks with the left. And again, the body protects the rock. He made it look easy, but at 6'8", Magic's ability to protect the ball at speed, he was rarely ever stripped, and use his body to shield.
All Magic's highlights are in transition, and when you're in transition, the processing speed, the awareness, the court awareness, and the relentless attack to try to score early. Magic wasn't that great in half courts though.
Defenders
couldn't really shoot.
The most dominant transition weapon ever. It was largely the same story in the half court too. This guard tries to funnel Magic into.
So here we go in the half court, right? So when I talk about skills that you guys need to have, right? All the dancing. So you see all the dancing you see nowadays, Kyrie, all the younger players, they dance a ton. But the real skill that you need is ball control and ball handling, like ball protection. So this is what I call side control, right? Close stance is when your shoulder's into this guy's chest. When your chest to chest, that's open. And when you're back to chest, that's post. So to move the ball down, all you need to do is get into side control and learn how to dribble sideways like this.
In the half court.
So you're flipping shoulders. And then here you're just backing down. This is still side control, even though his back is facing the baseline. It's shoulder into his chest. So the offense controls the defense. And if you can just move your way down, set stuff up, you don't have to be the bigger player to do this. You just have to be a little bit savvier and smarter with the ball and understand how to move in this type of direction. Chris Paul does it all the time. Jason Kidd, you don't have to use a lot of energy like Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, I don't know, all of the major ball handlers, Steve Francis, Kemba Walker, they like to pound it.
Tries to funnel Magic into this big man, but he ends up bodying him out of the play, and his freaking story in the half court too.
So this is just like when I talk about like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, brilliance, like this is just smart. So smart.
Most dominant transition weapon ever.
It's like an old man veteran move.
It was largely the same story.
So here, right? So right shoulder. Okay, now left shoulder. Okay, backing down, still side control. Okay, he's setting up a pick and roll right here. And then now the defender takes away the pick and roll, and all he does is flip shoulders. And so now that guy's in terrible position. Now he has the pick and roll anyways. So now he has this gigantic window for him to pass or attack this whole side. So in today's game, you'll see, tween, cross, behind, skip, between, wrap, just to set this all up. And all Magic did was turn his shoulders.
He ends up bodying him out.
And then so now he has this thing so where you can snake between your pick and roll, right? So now he has that same exact opportunity, gets into the paint.
And his free throws.
So this is
dominant transition into this big man.
This is a great example, right? So here, just in this position, that if you didn't see the video before, it would look like he had snaked to get in front of this guy. So set up the pick and roll, come back across in the snake. But here you have the exact same options, literally in every pick and roll. You can go here, bump and run, bump and shoot, right? You can attack here, you can dime it, you can snake back. There's drills, and then there's skills, and then there's stuff that really translates. So be careful what you guys are consuming and highlights and stuff like that. Highlights is not always the real stuff, man.
But he ends up bodying him out of the play, and his free throws. Irvin also used.
There's meat and potatoes, and then there's sugar and candy.
That tight handle and change of speed. This stop and go turned John Stockton into a matador, and Magic's acceleration could blow by athletic wings. He could also score from floater range, flowing into shots at all kinds of angles with crafty little releases like this. Fist pump went from floater range.
So this is using his size, right? He just jabs and he just gets in front. This guy takes a bad steal, and he just knows that he's big and can just shoot it.
When headed right to left, he also had a rolling hook shot from this range, and he could feel
that was his most devastating move once he started learning it.
His side.
This is savvy.
And he could feel contact immediately.
Okay, this is Kevin Durant learning, right? Boom, you take the contact, you just throw it up.
Shot attempt. His size and body control.
Everybody does that now. The great scorers.
Some seriously soft touch on these shots. He also used his size to pick apart defenses from the perimeter, hurling assists over the top, and the accuracy and speed. He also used his side.
This is a super nice pass. So one of the common attributes of really great passers is height, because you have to be able to see over a lot of players, and then you can see windows and access windows shorter players can't. So Chris Paul, you know, he's a great passer and stuff like that, but to access certain things, you see very rarely does Chris Paul throw it over somebody. So you'll see with Jokic, LeBron, I don't know who other tall guys, I guess Oscar Robertson. So when I talk about right time, right type, right pass, I mean right time, right type, right target, what makes a great pass, he throws it all the way up here for Kurt Rambis, who's slipping behind. You got Kareem right here, but he's looking the defenders off and then throwing it accurately. So it's an overhead chest pass, an overhead lob pass, whatever you want to call this.
Assist over the top.
So you see Kurt Rambis has to jump and get it. If that was someone with bad hands, if you're throwing at a teammate who has bad hands or has bad finishing ability, this is what I would classify a bad pass. And most of the times for me, since I'm a point guard or a playmaker, I attribute the mistake to the point guard for even, you know, doing this. So a bad finisher would just stop here and get stuck. They wouldn't know what to do. They try to finish it here. They don't have the ability to reverse, or they just pump like crazy, and then they would double team if they don't have good feet to land and shoot it right away. So if you're younger, or if you're a bad finisher, if you don't have great feet, and a passer like this threw it to you, I would blame it on the passer, because they don't know your personnel, KYP. Oh, yeah.
Over the top, and the accuracy and speed. He also used his size.
So Kurt Rambis here has to be able to land quickly and then finish on the other side with his left hand.
Over the top, and the accuracy and speed on some of these deliveries set them apart. Again, he's using his body here, able to shield off defenders by turning his back while still seeing all the action. Again, he's using his body.
Again, right? No fancy dribble is needed. Just walk to your spot, side control. You see how he's dribbling. He's not faced up. That's Dennis Rodman, I think.
Shield off defenders.
Now he turns his shoulder. Now he's tall. Now he's reading what action is happening back here, and you get a little back pick, and then you're going to get a wide open cut. Okay, as they switch, he has two players to pass it to because they're confused for that little brief moment. You see this action a lot with the Warriors and the Nuggets. Easy little dime here.
And his height let him keep a live dribble while just diming up teammates over shorter guards. And these were some of the most brilliant passes ever. Does anyone look
at the height differential?
Because Magic slingshots a pass over traffic to work. Brilliant pass. And his height let him keep a live dribble. Well, just
so I don't know. That was John Stockton, but throwing it over. So there's like a hook pass over the top
for shorter guards. And these were some of the most brilliant passes.
Here comes another one.
Look open here because Magic sling.
Right. So he throws it over the top. And when I talk about quarterbacks and stuff like that, you pass people open. This guy generally is not open, but once you get the ball down there, all the defense has to react. And then
over traffic to Worthy.
It's James Worthy, so he knows he can grab it and jump and dunk.
Going through, and Magic's third eye read the whole thing. Johnson fired bold passes like this across the paint regularly, and they required velocity and the acuity to read defenders' eyes, so he could
one hand off the bounce,
and they couldn't react in time. Bonus points.
Okay, a lot of those, you know, they're not going to show, but growing up watching a lot of Magic, not a lot, but watching. You have to live with certain risk, and a lot of those passes were deflected. So the highlights, they make it through into all these clips, but a lot of times they get deflected as well.
Larry Bird, who already picked off a tight Magic pass earlier in that game. That one was
just like that, actually. So this guy does a great job of finding all the clips, or a lot of clips. Here we go again.
That one was a looping attempt, and Magic.
So here would be better if it was a left-handed hook pass, kind of like Campasso, if you guys are watching, but Campasso does it with the right hand.
Clearly trusted his fastball more, sometimes even too much, overestimating how quickly he could teleport one past a nearby defender.
So this is, you know,
overestimating how
this is how they play. So when the team starts to hone in on what you're doing, he's trying to orchestrate stuff, and then he's reading the defense, but he's not a real viable threat to shoot. Look how much space they give him. Okay, the pass comes.
And there are spots where
you would never leave a shooter like that.
Look open, but he often throws it harder. Here he needs to lob one out in front of his intended receiver, but misses it, and then he's called for a one-step travel, changing his mind. Another minor nitpick about Magic's fastball is that sometimes it was a little too hot to handle. But most of the time, his passing velocity fit the ball into tight windows. For instance, some of his too hot to handle.
This one's a little bit better, right? He's directing traffic. Here comes a curl. He looks to the post entry, and then he turns his whole body to drop this. Look a lot like Draymond Green here.
For instance, some of his entries from the top like this were just bullseyes. He wasn't quite at Bird's level as an outlet passer, but he was splendid there as well, able to use that hairpin trigger off the bounce from the back court. And Magic's best outlet.
That's where Lonzo and LaMelo probably learned. LeVar probably fed him this video.
Outlets were snapping completions to his streaking teammates like this. There is an argument that Bird was a better pure passer of sorts, but I'm comfortable saying he was a superior off-ball passer where Magic's dribbling gave him a huge on-ball edge. Johnson carved out way more chances, and risk-taking in those spots is a natural trade-off. He also mastered certain angles and reads and relentlessly hit them over and over. And so it's nearly impossible to argue that anyone created more offense for his teammates in the 60s, 70s, or 80s than peak Magic Johnson. Using our best estimates of shots created, no one forced help and then set up a teammate more.
If you can dribble and put that much pressure, Magic is a much better athlete than Larry Bird. And yeah,
the Magic until the 2000s. And even
relentless pressure. That's how I like to coach my players.
Playmaker in these estimates. So just how high did all of this playmaking take the Lakers on offense? And did Magic give back any of that value because of questionable defense of this playmaking?
So right here, could the Lakers have kind of played the way that I'm telling a lot of you Nuggets fans or players that have like a broken player, like a superstar player? You just get them around a nail, especially if you're taller and can score one-on-one from the nail. Could Magic have done a lot better if he just parked it here and learned how to pass or attacked from there? Kind of a thought.
Take the Lakers on offense, and did Magic give back any of that value because of questionable defense? That's the shoot. That's Magic. Do what he was born to do. Toward the end of the 80s, more Magic shot creation came in the half court as the Lakers moved away from a steady diet of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar post-ups and started running more pick and roll from Magic. These were mostly side pick and rolls inside the line, where defenses committed
again. So just look at the
as the Lakers moved away from a steady diet.
The dribbling, the dribble types, right? Pounds, betweens, behinds. You don't need very much of it. You need to have the ability to do it just in case. When I'm teaching the kids, I say dribbling and ball handling. It's like fighting. Use it and only use it as much of it as you need, right? So if you get in a fight, you should be prepared to fight, but you shouldn't have to fight all the time. So there's no point in over dribbling all the time.
And started running more pick and roll from Magic. These were mostly side pick and rolls inside the line, where defenses committed extra defenders, and Magic could spray passes for open looks. This two-man game gave defenses fits, where if they didn't send extra defenders, Magic could slice into the openings himself. But of course, his passing punished any help. The defense collapses, and this was before that little lob pass was popular. Off pick and roll, Magic could use all his little scoring tricks headed to the rim. He could put that speedy hook pass to good use.
So when I talk about like a change of level, change of speed, change of direction, Magic is a master. They call him Magic because it's change of mind. It's the deception, right? The three changes: change of level, change of speed, change of direction, and then change of mind. Look at these like weird looking plays here, right? It looks like he's gonna lay it up.
He could put that speedy hook pass to good use.
Here's a nice little pass.
It wasn't as common, but he could make the pocket pass too.
So deceiving what the hell he's about to do.
His half-court dance was Magic's outside shooting, where he punished defenders who went under the screen. He didn't pull this as frequently as some players do today, but there were times when he was quick to fire, and he was an underrated outside shooter. In the last 3 years,
every time you see Magic shoot,
quick to fire,
so it's always off the little hop, so elastic, and then most of his jumps were always off the left leg right here.
At the foul line, and he extended his range beyond the three-point strike, hitting 34% of those.
All one drops, all elastic.
Magic said he had to shift his mindset to become more of a scorer, and I think it's reflected in his willingness to pull the trigger on outside shots and attack in the post more. He was more aggressive, taking smaller players to the block and using his size to score over them like this. Although on these little flip shots, he didn't need a clean look to be effective. So instead, he regularly busted out hook shots with both hands.
That's so nasty, that left-handed hook.
Craftiness made him a serious mismatch against guards down there. And yes, if you sent help, he would set up teammates from the block. Look, I'm not a doctor, but double teaming Magic Johnson in the post is not something I recommend. As Kareem faded, the Lakers actually played more in the half court behind.
The hook was so killer.
And that's when Magic quarterbacks.
Oh my God.
In the back half of the 80s, the Lakers produced the third best offensive stretch since the shot clock in both the regular season and the playoffs. Defense, however, was another story. Johnson often guarded forwards or slower guards to offset his slow foot speed. His lack of lateral quickness made Johnson.
So he says talk about low foot speed, but Magic goes up and down super fast. When you're playing offense, the type of movement that you need is different because it's more controlled. You actually control where you go. You're thinking where you can go, and you're much more in control of your body. When you're playing defense, your ability to move is much more correlated to your level as an athlete, because you're just reacting and you're using instinct. So your ability to turn your hips, flip around, turn, understanding center of mass, and all these different reads and stuff like on your feet. The much better athlete is the cornerback, not the wide receiver.
Often guarded forwards or slower guards to offset his slow foot speed. His lack of lateral quickness made him vulnerable on an island. And you can see how choppy his side-to-side movement could be, sliding in front of a young Charles Barkley here. Take a closer look at his footwork. He's on his heels a lot, gambles with a reach, then can't really break well and commits a reckless foul. Same technique here, and he's roasted by a pedestrian point guard, although Magic rarely had to venture outside 20 feet in the 1980s like this. Back then, sagging way off guards who stood near the line was standard, and this buffer helped him avoid breakdowns in these matches. Back then.
Right, so here, if you have a quicker guard, John Stockton versus Magic, like this is not bad defense. If it was bad defense, John Stockton would shoot it because John Stockton can shoot it. Magic is so tall, right? He's just sitting, and when I talk about it, it's like risk management. He can block all the passing angles, and then he can recover to give this a contested, at least a difficult shot. So sagging by itself is not bad defense. It's just risk management, and Magic is tall, so he can cover this ball or the attempt playing that distance.
Standard, and this buffer helped him avoid breakdowns in these matchups. When he played slower forwards, his size definitely helped him. Here, Bird's not quick enough to beat Magic's loping steps. And as he lost some quickness at the end of the decade, he could be assigned to jump shooting bigs because LA's forwards, AC Green and James Worthy, were both nimble enough to handle many wings. If those big men were to take Magic to the post, his size offered some resistance.
Team sport.
Block, his subpar agility and lack of vertical explosion could be exploited. He was actually more comfortable double teaming the post, where he could dig down and attack big men of that post-centric era.
Which means he has great hands.
Great. They could miss the mark, and he would foul on imprecise swipes at times. At 6'8", he did make kick-out passes a touch harder, yet he didn't attack the ball on that first dribble nearly as much as someone like Bird, often remaining upright on these plays or offering a weak flail at the rock. Magic's height was more of an asset on entry passes from smaller guards, and here comes that pseudo-Euro step again. This is an overhead view of the perks of being tall, just throwing his hands up against a smaller guard, and deflections like this triggered that vaunted Showtime fast break. Like Bird, Magic also roamed a lot on the edge of the paint, so he could slide over on drives like this when he wasn't doubling the post. Here's a nice sequence where he stays with the cutter and then peels off to help on the action.
As the rules change, you can't just park in the paint anymore, right?
Post. Here's a nice sequence where he stays with the cutter and then peels off to help on the action, and that deflection saved a Boston layup.
So scoring back then is different. So look at AC, who's this AC Green number? He's just parked here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's why back then the game was much more physical.
The cutter and then peels off to help on the action, and that deflection saved a Boston layup. He could also help down on cutters at the rim, sniffing this out and doing just enough to disrupt it. And this is probably the best defensive play I've seen him make in the late 80s, quickly reacting to the pass this time, and those hands were right on the money.
Oh, God.
Yet for all of his court vision, Magic wasn't always aware of the ball, occasionally tunnel visioning on the screening action in front of him as the ball dribbled right past him. He also fell asleep, occasionally tunnel visioning.
This is completely fine if you're tunnel vision in a game and you're guarding Larry Bird. It's like, this happens all the time when you're guarding Steph Curry. You better not leave Curry. Let somebody else beat you. So I wouldn't knock Magic Johnson on this one.
Action in front of him as the ball dribbled right past him. He also fell asleep every once in a while after a jumper. Bird beat him over the top twice with this in one game. Here he fell asleep every once in a while.
Is this Magic falling asleep, or is this Larry Bird's brilliance? You can't outrun basketball, especially at the pro level, maybe at the kid level.
Bird beat him over the top twice with this
Oh
in one
my
game.
God.
Here he is in transition, unaware of the threat behind him, and he gets a taste of his own medicine. But these issues weren't too common. His bigger issue in the paint was verticality. He often slid over, but offered statuesque resistance, and even Magic's better rotations weren't always effective because of how floor-bound he was. Here's a bumpy possession highlighting his two biggest weaknesses. He can't contain the guard courtside because of his slow feet. Then he lingers on the edge of the paint and delicately slides to the ball for a foul. He rarely contested at the rim in the half court, but in transition, he was often the first defender back, and he might as well have been 5'8" in these situations. It's not a huge part of the game either.
That's Charles Barkley, man.
Transition contest I found in countless opportunities. His typical approach in these spots of the game either they're back, and he might as well have been. He rarely contested at the rim in the half.
So he was not that good in transition D or regular D, like probably like average, I bet, compared to how good he was offensively.
He was often the first defender back, and he might as well have been.
This is Charles Barkley in his prime, man. I don't know if anybody's getting in the way of Charles Barkley right there. Charles Barkley goes through Magic right here. He's jumping sideways, closed.
It's not a huge part of the game.
I'm not taking a foul there.
The best transit
Here he does a decent job. This guy misses,
found in
so it's not his problem. Teammates got to get back and help him get that board.
these situations. It's not a huge part of the game either, but this is probably the best transition contest I found in countless opportunities. His typical approach in these spots was avoiding contact by subtly moving out of the way, which preserved Magic's body.
Right. So how do you play? Like some coaches and some teams, they don't want the foul because they want to take this ball out
Exchange.
and then they want to throw it down and run it down your throat the other way. They want the pace fast. So if you foul on every possession, you're slowing down the game. Think, I don't know, Detroit Pistons, Ben Wallace, the bad boy stuff, like they're fouling on everything. No easy layups. In the playoffs, that happens a lot more during season. You know, there's 80 some games. Why foul? Why not just, you know, let them score it and run, make them make a hard layup and then go.
Defense. 0-inch vertical contests barely work.
I don't know about that one.
During this period, and when he did catch one, it was using that same low block technique we saw from Bird, targeting the ball while it's in the hand still. And it's amazing to me how similar yet different these two were. Neither was suited to.
If you can't get it up high, you've got to get it low or behind or to the side. I mean, that's just smart, I guess. I don't know. Maybe most people aren't that smart. Like if you can't meet him at the top, you better meet him at the bottom. That's why they tell bigs don't bring the ball down.
With quick perimeter players, and they often roamed around on defense, taking advantage of the compressed game back then. Bird pushed boundaries as an off-ball post player and shooter, while Magic cranked the dial up with his on-ball passing.
Oh my God, that was a dime. So when I talk about deception, right? Ooh, this was sick.
As an off-ball post player and shooter, while Magic cranked.
This was sick.
The dial up with his on-ball.
Oh my God, that was such an easy left-hand layup. Even a right-handed. Oh my God.
Hall of Fame centers. And while Kevin McHale is rightfully heralded as an artist in the post, James Worthy was an isolation machine. Worthy blended perfectly with Magic as Kareem faded, providing a more dynamic half-court backup plan. Note how many great Magic passes are off a Worthy cut. And of course, faded in the post.
I need to just look at the isolation when you're the better athlete. Just one move and go. This is a in and out push cross. Right, and then he just dunks. This is what I want Giannis to do all the time.
Worthy blended perfectly with Magic as Kareem faded, providing a more dynamic half-court.
Beautiful spin.
Note how many great Magic passes are off a Worthy cut. And of course, Big Game James was incredible running the wing in transition. Unfortunately, we can't really examine their missed time during the 80s because Magic and his teammates were so healthy. But the more comprehensive approach we used in episode 1 and figured
maybe Giannis should watch some James Worthy.
Magic's second all time, reinforcing at the very least that he was having monster offensive impact. All-in-one metrics also view his peak as one of history's very best. If we use 1986 instead of 1989 here, he's actually fifth in both stats. But I don't think there's enough of a defensive boost from that 86 season to outweigh his increased offensive aggression at the end of the decade. Remember, that aggression only enhanced his playmaking, the opposite phenomenon we discussed with Wilt Chamberlain in episode 1. Magic scored less than Wilt, but was a far more dominant weapon because he maximized his playmaking off of his scoring. He did this with near optimal shot selection as
like when I talk about player profiles and stuff like that, we got playmaker, sniper, scorer, like the Jewish star, I think, right here, defender, slasher. I don't know. I'm still thinking this one through, right? And the showman. Depending on where you are, if you guys didn't know, I'm a psychologist, so I have these like assessment backgrounds and stuff like that. I could give you a test and tell you what your IQ is and if you're autistic and behavioral therapy, whatever. Side note, if you're a playmaker, on the other end, this is like you're trying to make all the right moves, understanding all the pieces. On the other end is the scorer. So if you're the scorer, you're thinking more like I can do it all by myself. If things get tough, I'm just going to do it by myself. You're trying to identify where you are on this scale, and then to make you a more productive playmaker, you actually have to be a much stronger scorer. So they're talking about Magic being a playmaker and laying off him, and you have to be much more aggressive so people respect your shot and stuff like that. So this is what I'm talking about with Rondo, Draymond Green, Jokic at times. And then when you had it the other way, this is like Kobe, right? He's just all scoring, and MJ, when every time they do, they just quadruple team you. He had to learn how to pass. Same thing with MJ. He had to learn how to pass. So wherever you guys are in this, same thing, kind of like sniper over here and slasher, right? Snipers are just always prepared. So they're always looking for the a thing to prepare for. So they're always standing in the corner ready. You know, they'll do 1,000 shots. Slashers are more risk takers. They see a little thing, they'll run. They see a steal, they're going to go for it. So they're kind of on opposite ends. Same thing with defender. Defender is just like, I don't care about whatever my point of view. I care about the team. The showman is more like, I'd rather have all the eyes and attention. I don't care if I make the shot. So think street ballers and players that just, you know, get excited over breaking somebody's ankles and then missing the shot or something like that, or breaking somebody's ankle and throwing a terrible pass. Anyway.
Well, rarely ever forcing low percentage attempts or settling for something easy before testing the defense. Magic's also viewed as a good rebounder because of his 6 or 7 boards a game, well listed as a point guard, but he was functionally closer to a wing and wasn't overly physical boxing out big men when switching onto them. And while there might have been a tactical advantage to him cleaning the glass to start the fast break, I think this kind of rebounding only added a little defensive value. I do think he could string together decent possessions in the moments where his motor was revved up, but it's hard to view him as much of a positive on that end. Instead, the offense is so good, it elevates him among the legends by itself. His game does come with a small
creation, 98th spacing, middle, passer rating, 99, offensive load, 94. It's kind of like Steve Nash scoring rate, like offensive load. Steve Nash would push the ball by dribbling it a lot. I wouldn't coach it that way nowadays. That's just a lot of responsibility for one guy.
Trade-off, he was significantly less effective without monopolizing the basketball, meaning any other on-ball star wouldn't fit well next to him. But with post pieces or good finishers, he basically guaranteed you a championship level offense. And that means despite only scoring 20 points per game, Magic Johnson has a strong case as the greatest offensive player of all time.
20 points per game. What, 20 points per game, 10 assists? That's like Steve Nash probably averaged a little bit more assists, less scoring. That's a lot of work for, I mean, James Harden, when he was on the Rockets, that's a lot of pressure on one guy to do everything, and you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, especially if they get injured. All-time passing speed in transition, yes. Tight handle. His handle was I think it's overrated. Ball control is high, brain is super high, creation is super high, but he does not have handles like literally any player point guard nowadays. High level post game, yes. Left and right hand hooks, crafty finisher and foul drawer, yes. Strong outside shooter. Mediocre at 3-pointer to average, right? Poor fit with other ball dominant wings, yeah, because Magic liked to make all the decisions. Struggled against quick guards, yeah. He's too tall, his feet weren't that good. Preferred to roam, help, yes. Weak rim protection, solid trapping instincts. Could he have been the best, what they say, offensive player? No, that's got to be like James Harden or Steve Nash, that one James Harden season, or even Russell Westbrook in terms of like how much responsibility. Like Westbrook did all the rebounding, shooting, scoring, and all that stuff. Those triple double seasons. Oh, what an episode. The question was, could he have been the greatest offensive person ever? No, I think that kind of off the top of my head has to go to James Harden in that one year when he went just bananas. Even Russell Westbrook in those OKC years when he literally had to do everything. Was it as nice or efficient or as clean as Magic or entertaining as Magic? Probably not. What an episode. Let me know what you guys think. Magic Johnson definitely had some flaws. This whoever thinking basketball, he's definitely put some great clips together. He presents it both ways, so gives you guys a chance to think and evaluate for yourself. With all these, it's very hard to judge. It's across generations, and then the current generation has the benefit of looking back and benefiting from learning from all the previous, and then you have to kind of throw context in there and stuff like that, and new stats and new data, and who really knows what this 51% spacing is and creation and all of this stuff. So these are data points that are useful in talking about it, but the debates will go on forever, man. All right, guys, happy new year, and as always, remember to take 14 minutes 24 seconds or 1% of your day to get better. Peace.